This video will show you how to properly stretch a Newman roller frame on a Newman roller table, such as the one shown in this video. It's important to make sure that you've gotten all of the gunk out of this section of the frame, and you have properly prepared the frame to be stretched by cleaning it. You'll need a variety of tools. You'll need a series of tools to properly tension screens. First, you need a properly calibrated tension meter. You need a calibration device such as this piece of glass. A Sharpie marker is critical. You'll need a device for loosening the corners. This is a common squeegee and it's been cut down to a size that fits the screen. In this particular case, the screen size is right here. That's the proper width, and you actually use it at this location here. You'll also need a pair of pliers for removing the locking strips. You need a torque wrench such as this one. It should be a high quality click style torque wrench with a 5/8 socket. It's also helpful to have a ratchet with a 5/8 inch socket, and occasionally it is nice to have the Newman Stretch Devices magnesium wrench. Although this is not required, it does make things a little bit easier. The first thing to do is to place the frame on the table, and to ensure that you locate the frame properly, there are locator pins. Okay, once you've loosened the bolts, you should go ahead and pre-locate the rollers. Each roller should be positioned so that this corner is located approximately there on the second mark. I'm going to put my fingernail there to make this easier to see. We're going to be making a 230 mesh count frame today, and one of the beauties of retensionable frames is that you can change the mesh counts you have in production as your production needs change. So the first thing you need to do is to insert the locking strip into one of the short ends. It doesn't really matter which side you do this from. We find the short end is the easier one to start with, and you'll see Clyde has inserted that. Next we'll go to the opposite end and we'll insert another locking strip. And you want to try and get this as tight as possible, and it's important to keep the mesh square when you do this. If you don't, you'll tension your mesh at an angle and it'll cause you all sorts of grief on press. Okay. And if you're new to retensionable frames, you'll find that the documentation from the manufacturer is just a little on the lackluster side. In our case, it was a one-page piece of paper that did not adequately explain this process, and that's why I'm making this video. You repeat the process with the long side, making sure to tension it as you go. Doesn't make for terribly good video, but you get the idea. And again, you want to make sure that you keep this as tight as possible. And you'll see how Clyde is pulling with his left hand as he's inserting the locking strip with his right hand. Okay, we'll now put the wrench bits on. Clyde, if you'll go ahead and put these on. You want to pull the cylinder all the way up, and then you want to give it the maximum amount of bite. These can be adjusted later, but it's easier if you get the maximum bite on each one when you insert them. These marks aren't super critical. They just need to be there so that you can see how much you've pulled the mesh out as you relax the corners. Okay, once you've got the relaxing tool in place, you'll go ahead and slide the clip over to the relaxing tool. And this ensures that you only relax the actual corner of the frame. And then the relaxing tool motion has often been described as cutting carrots. Again, you just want to rock it back and forth in there, and what it does is it wiggles the locking strip so that you can relax the frame. And you can see Clyde actually relaxing it, and you'll see the black mark is moving away from the edge of the frame, and this is the magic trick to making tensioning work. We like to pull it down to where the mesh has been relaxed about 1 inch to 1.25 inches. this takes some trial and error, and you will lose some mesh in the process of learning this. One thing you want to be careful not to do is you don't want a lot of tension at this point, because what will happen is the corner of the frame will put a hole in the mesh, at which point it rips and pops. In the event that you didn't place the mesh properly, you would need to use the pliers. It's possible to do this without pliers, but it's very difficult. The pliers, and these are just some cheap $2 needle nose pliers, make it very easy to get underneath the corner of the mesh, as you can see here. Before you check the tension, it's important to make sure your tension meter is properly zeroed until it engages, and then you tighten the thumb screw. And you pick it up and you set it down and make sure it's still zeroed. At this point, the tension meter is ready to use. It's important to take care not to drop your tension meter, as it will require a visit back to the factory for calibration if you drop it. These are precision instruments. When you're ready to tension your frame, you want to make sure that your air pressure is set to the proper location. So in this particular case, we would look up 230. And for this particular brand of mesh, we use 20 psi on each side to achieve 24 newtons of tension. And so in this particular case, you'll see that we have our gauge reads 20 psi. And if you flip the switch just very quickly, this is a good way to see where your tension or where your air pressure is set. As you can see here, it moved down, so I need to increase my tension a little bit. And I do that by turning this up. And again, you just flip the switch a little bit, and that lets you know where your air pressure is at. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the other one, and I'll be right back. And when you do flip the switch, it's important to flip both switches simultaneously. Go ahead, Clyde. And you'll see the frame come up to tension. I like to leave it here for a few seconds, and then I like to verify that my tension's correct by using my tension meter. The beauty of this table, again, is it's tensioning all four corners of the screen simultaneously, and it results in a nice tight screen at maximum tension. So we'll go ahead and put the tension meter on the screen, and we can see here that I have arrived at just over 24 newtons, so I'm right on target with where I'm expecting to be. And then I'll turn the tension meter sideways, and I can see that my tension is the same front to back as it is left to right. So at this point, I can go ahead and lock the frame down. This frame is properly tensioned, and you can see here there's a minimum amount of deflection, which allows us to give a good quality print. Before you tension your frame, it's important to make sure that your corners are still relaxed. In particular, you want to make sure that the end of the channel is loose at the frame. If this is not loose, it will rip your screen and it will destroy your screen quite quickly. The manufacturer recommends that you have them a little tighter than this, but what we find in practice is that ink and emulsion tend to work their way into this channel, and the fabric just doesn't move at that point, and so we have difficulty relaxing them a second time. So I recommend that you make them a little bit loose. One of the reasons is you do not print in this section of the frame. Again, you can see that I've got real nice loose mesh here. This is one of the things that makes this work. Again, you can see my mark. My mark started out at the edge of the channel, and we've pulled approximately 1.5 inches of mesh out of the channel. At this stage, what we're going to do is go ahead and tighten, and you'll hear an audible click. There it is. And Clyde, if you'll do that for me one more time. Okay, go ahead and press down on it so I can hear that click one more time. You'll hear a click when the wrench reaches the torque. There it is, and one more time. And that audible pop lets you know you've reached the designated tension. I'm not going to explain how to work your torque wrench. Each torque wrench is a little bit different. It is important when you're working with roller frames that you follow the tension recommendations of the manufacturer. Over-tensioning or under-tensioning will give you no end of grief on press. It will destroy your frames, and it may lead to the fastener seizing.